inviting me. In my expose, I try to put to show some aspect of the contradiction of Iranian behavior in regard to the minorities and to make a comparison what has come in its obligation as a country that has signed the international covenant pact on the political rights, which stipulates that in those states in which ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities exist, persons belonging to such minorities shall not be denied the right in community with the other members of their group to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or to use their own language. As Iran ratified that convention, it is legally obliged to ensure the enjoyment of these rights by persons belonging to such minorities. In Iranian constitution formally provides for the fair treatment of its minorities. The Article 14 provides for equality of all people, all before the law. Article 15 permits the use of local and ethnic language and the teaching of ethnic literature in schools, while establishing Persian as the official language. Article 19 states all people of Iran, whatever the ethnic group or tribe which they belong, enjoy equal rights and color, race, language, and the like, do not bestow any privilege. But the reality is different. The clear denial of even low-level minority demands for some linguistic, publishing, and educational freedoms have combined with heavy-handed and outright economic and political repression to make Iranian national and religious minorities disproportionately vulnerable to human rights abuses. One should also note that the treatment suffered by Iran's national minorities not only contrasts sharply with Iran's international human rights commitment, but also with its own legal provisions. Having asserted their fundamental socio-cultural rights, Kurdish people in Iran were always treated with mistrust, marginalized, and discriminated against. These politics have been criticized regularly by human rights organizations. According to a report of Amnesty International, the Iranian government does not respect its obligation to prevent its Kurdish citizens from being discriminated. For Amnesty International, the estimated 12 million Kurds who live in Iran and form around 15% of the population are especially discriminated on issues related to employment, education, and housing. The Kurds are also culturally discriminated. The Article 15 of the Iranian Constitution allows non-Persian populations of the country to use their tongue in language in public, but this article has never been implemented, and teaching in Kurdish in the school is still forbidden. Kurdish parents do not have the right to give Kurdish names to their children, and they risk exclusion. This has been a barrier, this discrimination has been a barrier to the transition of the Kurdish history, language, oral traditions, philosophies, writing system, and literature to future generations. The Kurds are economically discriminated too. This discrimination in employment and access to decent housing, and the fact that Kurdish regions were economically neglected. The official state statistics clearly shows enormous inequalities at the level of allocation of financial investments, and that the Kurdish region has been explicitly neglected. The government has strictly prevented the private sector to develop and invest in the region. To date, there is neither banking system in the Kurdish region of Iran nor the possibility to support investment in that region. According to the Iranian Kurdish MP Muhammad Partavi, over 60% of the Kurdish people in Kurdistan live in poverty. He attributes this poverty to governmental deprivation and misconduct of regional authorities and wrong policies of the Iranian authorities. The Kurdish activists are widely discriminated. In this regard, in a letter from prison, the Kurdish teacher and poet Farzad Kamangar, who was executed on May 2010, reveals that most of the Kurds continue to bear the label of ethnic minority. Even in prison, they receive severe punishment, undergo the isolation and exclusion. The religion has been another factor of discrimination for Kurds, like most of the countries linguistically as well as culturally distant minorities, Arabs, Baluch, and Turkmens, who practice Sunni Islam. These groups, in addition to the discriminatory policies that directly upon their national identity, they are also affected because of their faith. One can conclude that 30 years later, the Iranian authorities not only they have not respected the content of the Article 27 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, provisions of national constitution, namely the Article 14, which provides for equality of all people the law, the Article 15, which allows for the use of local and ethnic language, the Article 19 that states the people of Iran, no matter what ethnicity or tribe they belong, enjoy equal rights. These articles have not been implemented. On the contrary, the situation of national and religious minorities has gone from bad to worse. In this regard, the Kurds in Iran are convinced that the status quo is not acceptable, and that is why they campaign for a democratic, independent, and federalized Iran. They believe that the people of Iran have the right to self-determination and seek regional autonomy in a federalized context and alongside with other national minorities to participate in decision-making that directly affect their lives. They are also determined to provide equality of rights for men and women in society, and this is the family, the separation of religion and state, equality in education, housing, economic access, and especially workers' social and economic demands, and end of religious discrimination and marginalization. Finally, we believe that Iran's unity will be most convincingly preserved in the context of a pluralist diversity within a federal system which facilitates democracy and social justice. Thank you.